track 847,000 packages nightly with 99.98% accuracy. Last week, a 0.02% variance led me to discover my wife's affair, tracked with the same precision I use at work. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I adjusted my headset and settled into my chair for another 10 p.m. shift at Megaflow Distribution Center. 3 monitors glowed blue in front of me, displaying real-time inventory data that most people would find mind-numbing. Not me. The numbers told stories. Every percentage point, every variance, every perfectly aligned decimal that meant our automated systems were running like the precision instruments they were designed to be. System status, optimal, I muttered, reviewing yesterday's performance metrics. 99.98% accuracy rate. The robotic picking arms moved below me in their mechanical ballet, selecting items with surgical precision. Conveyor belts hummed like rivers of commerce flowing through the warehouse. This was my domain. Predictable patterns, logical sequences, systems that worked exactly as programmed. I took a sip of coffee from my thermos and pulled up the overnight manifest. 847 orders to process. The warehouse floor stretched out beneath my elevated control booth like a chrome and steel cathedral. Every movement tracked, every item logged, every transaction recorded down to the second. When humans stayed out of the way, the machines never lied. Another quiet night ahead. That morning, over breakfast, Courtney announced her new plan while Emma pushed cereal around her bowl. "I'm volunteering for extra inventory correction shifts at Pacific Logistics," she said, buttering her toast with practiced efficiency. "Mom already agreed to watch Emma." She nodded toward my mother, Linda, who was wiping down the counter with the methodical precision she'd passed down to me. I nodded approvingly. Courtney had always been ambitious, always looking for ways to advance. It's what I'd admired about her when we first met in the logistics training program. While other people saw warehouse work as a dead end, she saw systems to master and hierarchies to climb. 3 weeks into September, I noticed something that made my coffee taste like metal in my mouth. The overnight reports showed our standard 99.98% inventory accuracy, except for a persistent 0.02% variance that appeared every few days like clockwork. My fingers moved across the keyboard, pulling historical data going back 6 months. The anomaly had started exactly when Courtney began her overtime shifts at Pacific Logistics. "Coincidence?" I whispered to the empty control room, but my analytical mind wouldn't let it rest. In a fully automated facility like Megaflow, even 0.02% variance shouldn't exist. Every item had RFID tags. Every movement was tracked by sensors. Every transaction logged by computers that didn't make mistakes. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the numbers. The variance wasn't random. It followed a pattern. Every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday night. Always between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. Always in high-value electronics inventory. Something was creating phantom inventory movements in my perfect system. The warehouse floor below continued its mechanical symphony, robotic arms selecting items with millimeter precision. But somewhere in all that automation, something human was interfering with the process. something that left digital fingerprints in my carefully maintained data. I pulled up the automated picking robot logs on my secondary monitor, cross-referencing them with the variance reports. The timestamps told a story that made my chest tighten. Phantom orders appearing in the system, items selected and moved by the robotic arms, but never appearing on outbound shipping manifests. "These orders were never shipped," I said aloud, my voice echoing in the control booth. Each phantom shipment occurred during off hours when only security, maintenance, and night shift logistics coordinators like me should be present. The items were being selected, moved to staging areas, then disappearing from the system entirely. No shipping labels generated, no tracking numbers assigned, no delivery confirmations. But the robots had moved them. The data was there in black and white, timestamps, item numbers, storage locations. The machines had done exactly what they were programmed to do. Someone had simply programmed them to do it. I scrolled through weeks of data, my pulse quickening with each discovery. High-end tablets, smartphones, gaming consoles, all items that would be easy to resell, all processed during the exact hours when Courtney claimed to be working overtime at another facility. The coffee in my thermos had gone cold hours ago, but I barely noticed. The numbers were telling me a story I didn't want to believe. At 2 a.m., during my scheduled break, I called Courtney's cell phone. The warehouse floor below me continued its automated dance, conveyor belts carrying packages toward shipping docks that wouldn't open until the day shift arrived. "Hey," she answered after 4 rings, slightly breathless. "What's up?" "Just checking in. How's the inventory correction going?" Static crackled through the connection. In the background, I could hear what sounded like music, not the industrial hum of warehouse equipment, but actual music with a bass line. "Oh, tedious stuff. Lots of manual counts in the back sections," she said. Her voice had that careful quality again, like she was reading from a script. "Which section are you working tonight?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual while my free hand pulled up facility blueprints on my monitor. Section 12C. Really dusty back here. Haven't been in this area for months." The lie hit me like ice water in my veins. Section 12C had been demolished 8 months ago for the new automated sorting expansion. I'd overseen the inventory relocation myself, item by item, ensuring nothing was lost in the transition. That's good. They're finally getting that area organized," I managed to say. "Yeah, well, someone has to do the detail work. I should get back to it. Love you." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, then at the facility blueprint still glowing on my screen. The empty space where Section 12C used to be mocked me with its clean, geometric lines. My hands trembled slightly as I accessed the RFID badge tracking system. Every employee's movements were logged automatically, security protocol for our high-value inventory. Insurance companies demanded it, corporate auditors required it, and I maintained it with religious precision. I typed in Courtney's badge number, my heart hammering against my ribs like a machine running out of alignment. The system prompted for date ranges. I entered the last 3 weeks. Every night she'd claimed to be working overtime at Pacific Logistics. The screen loaded her location history in a neat, color-coded timeline. During her claimed overtime shifts, when she should have been 15 miles away at another facility, her badge showed her accessing Megaflow's Sector 7B, our storage area for high-end electronics. The timestamps matched perfectly with the phantom shipments I discovered. Every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Badge swipes at 10:47 p.m., 11:23 p.m., 12:15 a.m. Always the same pattern, always in the same restricted area. My wife wasn't working overtime at Pacific Logistics. She was here, in my warehouse during my shift. Using her access credentials to manipulate the automated systems, I trusted more than I trusted my own instincts. The data didn't lie. It never lied. And right now it was telling me that everything I thought I knew about my marriage was as phantom as those missing inventory items. I forced myself to close the RFID logs and return to my normal routine. The warehouse demanded its rhythm, and I had to maintain the illusion that nothing had changed. But every automated beep from the sorting machines, every mechanical whir of the conveyor belts, every electronic chirp from the inventory scanners, it all sounded different now. Ominous. Like the warehouse itself was trying to tell me something I'd been too blind to see. My coffee had gone cold hours ago, but I kept sipping it anyway. The bitter taste matched my mood perfectly. I pulled up the environmental control system, heat sensors that monitored temperature fluctuations for our sensitive electronics inventory. Insurance required constant monitoring. Temperature spikes could damage millions in merchandise, so every degree was logged, every thermal reading archived. I entered the same date ranges, focused on Sector 7B. The system loaded slowly, processing weeks of thermal data. When the readings appeared on screen, my stomach dropped like a broken elevator. During every timestamp when Courtney's badge showed activity in Sector 7B, the heat sensors detected two distinct signatures. Two people. Two warm bodies moving between the inventory racks, their heat patterns clearly visible against the cooler background of stored electronics. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the thermal readings. The data painted a picture I didn't want to see. Two figures, one stationary near the loading area, one moving systematically through the high-value inventory. Professional, coordinated. Someone was helping her. The warehouse hummed around me, 60,000 square feet of automated precision, and all I could think about was how it felt different now. Less like my controlled domain, more like a crime scene. Every shadow between the towering shelves could be hiding evidence. Every perfect process I'd built could be compromised. The next morning, I kissed Courtney goodbye as she prepared for another overtime shift. Her lips tasted like lies now. I couldn't shake the metallic flavor of deception. "Working late again tonight?" I asked, studying her face for tells. After 8 years of marriage, I knew her expressions. The slight tightening around her eyes when she was stressed. The way she touched her earring when nervous. Unfortunately, yes. This inventory correction project is bigger than we expected. She avoided my eyes, checking her phone instead. Might be another long one. Emma bounced into the kitchen, backpack slung over her shoulder. "Mommy, can we go to the zoo this weekend?" "We'll see, sweetheart. Mommy's been very busy with work lately." Courtney hugged our daughter, and for a moment, the normalcy of it almost made me doubt what I'd discovered. Almost. I watched Courtney drive away, noting the time on my phone. 6:47 a.m. Tonight, I'd be monitoring every system, waiting for her badge to appear in Sector 7B, waiting for the thermal sensors to detect 2 heat signatures instead of 0. The day crawled by. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw those GPS coordinates, those phantom shipments, those thermal readings showing 2 people where there should be none. At 11:30 p.m., my screen lit up with an automated alert. Badge access, Sector 7B, Courtney Morris. My pulse quickened as I switched to the live heat sensor feed. 2 signatures appeared almost immediately. One stationary near the loading dock, one moving methodically between inventory racks. My training kicked in, overriding the emotional chaos in my head. Document everything, build the case, let the data tell the story. I began screen capturing the thermal data, saving the badge logs, timestamping every system alert. The warehouse hummed its familiar tune around me, oblivious to the betrayal unfolding in its depths. Conveyor belts carried legitimate orders while my wife stole from my employer, using my shift as cover. The moving heat signature paused at a specific rack, high-end tablets, retail value $800 each. The stationary signature shifted position, moving toward what looked like the loading area. They were working together, efficient and practiced. My wife wasn't just cheating on me. She was stealing from the company that trusted me to maintain their security. I accessed the vehicle telematics system, GPS tracking for all company trucks and equipment. If items were leaving the warehouse, they needed transportation. My fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling location data for the past month. Every company vehicle was tracked in real time, every route logged, every stop documented. Vehicle 4A-7729 showed unusual activity during off hours, always coinciding with Courtney's badge activity. The GPS coordinates led to various locations around the city, addresses I didn't recognize, but the pattern was clear. These weren't random stops, they were delivery points. I plotted the coordinates on a digital map, watching the dots appear like a constellation of betrayal. Residential addresses, small businesses, a few commercial locations, all visited during the early morning hours when legitimate deliveries wouldn't occur. But one coordinate appeared repeatedly, standing out like a red flag in the data: Riverside Motel. 47 separate visits during Courtney's supposed overtime shifts. I stared at the screen, the implications washing over me like ice water. This wasn't just theft, this was an affair. The motel visits lasted 2 to 3 hours each time, always during my work shift. Always when I was here, trusting the systems, trusting my wife, trusting that the world operated according to the logical principles I'd built my life around. The warehouse automation continued its perfect rhythm around me, scanners beeping, conveyors humming, robots picking orders with mechanical precision. But my world was crumbling in digital silence, one data point at a time. I printed the GPS logs, my hand steady despite the emotional storm raging in my chest. 47 trips to Riverside Motel, perfectly aligned with phantom shipments and thermal signatures. Someone with access to company vehicles was helping Courtney, someone who knew the warehouse systems as well as I did. As dawn approached, I realized I wasn't just investigating theft anymore. I was documenting the systematic destruction of my marriage. The evidence was irrefutable, digital, and devastating. Every timestamp, every GPS coordinate, every thermal reading painted the same picture: betrayal wrapped in lies, theft disguised as overtime. The data didn't lie. It never lied. And right now, it was telling me that tomorrow night, I'd be ready with questions that demanded answers. GPS telematics from company vehicles showed Courtney's location during her claimed overtime didn't match warehouse coordinates. The coordinates led somewhere else entirely, to places where marriages went to die. The RFID terminal cast a blue glow across my face as I pulled up the badge tracking system. My coffee had gone stone cold hours ago, but I couldn't stop. The warehouse hummed around me, conveyors running their endless loops, robots whirring through their programmed routes. Everything precise, everything predictable, except this. I cross-referenced Courtney's badge scans with the loading dock assignments, my fingers moving automatically across the keyboard. The data painted a picture that made my chest tight. 17 times last month, her badge showed access to Dock 7B. I stared at the screen. Dock 7B was decommissioned in 2023, sealed off after the structural damage from that forklift accident. Nobody had access to that area. It didn't even exist in our active system anymore. "What the hell were you doing there, Courtney?" I whispered to the empty control room. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting shadows across my printouts. I pulled up the facility maps, double-checking what I already knew. The entire B-wing loading area had been walled off, converted to storage for obsolete equipment. But somehow, Courtney's badge was pinging from a ghost location. My hands moved to the thermal monitoring system. These sensors were installed throughout the facility, originally designed to catch equipment overheating, but they tracked human heat signatures too. Safety protocol. If someone collapsed in the warehouse, we'd know within minutes. The thermal logs loaded slowly, each timestamp marking another piece of evidence. During Courtney's claimed overtime shifts, I scrolled through the heat maps. Sectors 5 through 8 showed up as cold blue zones. No human presence detected. The visualization software painted it clearly. Empty corridors, vacant storage areas, nothing moving except the automated systems. But her RFID badge said she was there, working, earning that extra $2,847 every month. The warehouse felt eerily quiet around me, just the distant hum of machinery and the occasional beep from the sorting systems. I exported the thermal data, my hands shaking slightly. The implications were becoming clearer with each file I opened. "You've been here since your shift ended 6 hours ago, man." I looked up to see Miguel approaching my workstation, carrying 2 energy drinks and wearing that concerned expression I knew too well. Morning sunlight streamed through the high windows, casting long shadows across the warehouse floor. I hadn't even noticed the sun coming up. "Linda called," Miguel continued, setting down one of the drinks. "Emma's asking where Daddy is." I barely glanced away from my screens. The desk was covered with printouts now, badge logs, thermal reports, facility maps. "I found something, Miguel. Look at this." He leaned over my shoulder, studying the thermal patterns on the monitor. Miguel had 20 years in IT systems. If anyone could understand what I was seeing, it was him. "These heat sensors don't lie," I said, pointing to the cold zones. During every single one of Courtney's overtime shifts, the areas where her badge was active show 0 human presence. 0. Miguel whistled low, his professional interest kicking in. "That's impossible. These sensors are military grade. They detect body heat from 50 feet away." That's what I thought too. I pulled up another screen, showing the badge access logs side by side with the thermal data. The contrast was stark. Digital presence with no physical reality. "Miguel, she's been clocking into phantom locations, places that either don't exist or were completely empty when she claimed to be working there." He grabbed a chair, rolling it over to my workstation. "Show me the picking robot logs." The fulfillment robots were the crown jewel of our operation. 8 massive units worth $2.3 million each. They moved through the warehouse with surgical precision, every action time-stamped and logged. If Courtney was really working overtime in inventory management, these logs would show her interactions with the automated systems. Miguel pulled up the data on his tablet, fingers flying across the interface. "These logs don't lie, John. Every item movement, every staging area assignment, every truck loading sequence. It's all here." The data loaded in real time, showing the robot's activities during Courtney's claimed shifts. What I saw made my stomach drop. Phantom orders. Items moved to staging areas but never loaded onto trucks. Inventory relocated without corresponding shipping manifests. The robots had been processing requests that led nowhere. Digital busywork that created the illusion of activity. "Look at this," Miguel said, highlighting a series of entries. During her October 3rd shift, the system shows 47 items moved to staging, but the loading dock log shows 0 outbound shipments that night. I felt the warehouse walls closing in around me. Each timestamp was another nail in my marriage's coffin, another piece of evidence that my wife had been systematically deceiving me. "The 2026 visualization software," I said. "Can you run the full analysis?" Miguel nodded, connecting his tablet to the main terminal. The advanced AI system began processing the data, transforming raw numbers into a 3-dimensional map of the warehouse. The holographic display materialized above the desk, ghostly trails showing movement patterns, heat signatures, badge locations. Courtney's supposed activities appeared as translucent pathways through empty space. The AI highlighted anomalies in bright red, 47 instances where her badge location contradicted sensor data, phantom interactions with non-existent inventory, digital breadcrumbs of deception. "This is better than any private investigator could get you," Miguel said, his voice quiet with amazement and sympathy. I stared at the floating display, watching my wife's lies rendered in perfect detail. The warehouse automation had created an unbreakable digital chain of evidence. Every sensor, every timestamp, every robot interaction told the same story. She wasn't working overtime. She wasn't even here. The vindication felt hollow, mixed with a sick realization of how thoroughly I'd been played. "John, I'm sorry, but you need to know. I've suspected something for months." Sarah Chen's voice cut through my thoughts. I turned to see the day shift supervisor standing behind us, her expression heavy with guilt. The morning shift workers were starting to arrive, their chatter echoing through the facility as normal operations resumed around us. "I noticed Courtney's overtime requests never aligned with actual workload needs," Sarah continued, moving closer to our workstation. "We didn't have the inventory volume to justify those hours, but I assumed she was just being proactive, maybe working on process improvements." I looked at Sarah, processing what she just said. The morning shift workers moved past us, their voices creating a familiar backdrop of routine operations. But nothing felt routine anymore. "Process improvements?" I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the anger building in my chest. Sarah nodded, her expression troubled. She'd submit these detailed reports about efficiency optimization, inventory flow analysis, real technical stuff. I figured she was angling for a promotion to operations management. Miguel pulled up another screen on his tablet. "John, you need to see this, the fleet management system." The GPS tracking data loaded slowly, each data point appearing like digital breadcrumbs across a map of our city. Vehicle 4A7729, one of our company trucks. The route history showed a clear pattern: warehouse to Riverside Motel, 47 trips over the past 6 months. "Every single trip corresponds with Courtney's overtime shifts," Miguel said, his voice barely above a whisper. I stared at the screen, watching the GPS dots trace the same path over and over. Warehouse to motel, motel to warehouse. The truck would sit idle at the motel for hours, sometimes 3, sometimes 5. The idle time reports showed the engine running intermittently, probably for air conditioning. "She was using company vehicles," I said, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. "Taking our trucks to meet Derek Patterson," Sarah finished quietly. "I've seen his BMW in the parking lot during off hours. Thought he was working late too." Miguel switched to another view, overlaying the vehicle tracking with warehouse security camera timestamps. The correlation was perfect. Derek's BMW would arrive first, then 20 minutes later, vehicle 4A7729 would leave the facility. "Look at this," Miguel said, pulling up the loading dock camera footage. The black and white images were grainy but clear enough. Derek's silver BMW pulling into the employee lot at 11:47 p.m. on September 28th. The timestamp matched exactly with one of Courtney's badge scans. I watched the footage with a sick fascination. 23 minutes later, the camera showed our company truck, the one Courtney had signed out for inventory transfers, pulling away from the loading dock. "Fast forward to when she comes back," I said. Miguel scrubbed through the footage. 3:17 a.m. The truck returned. Courtney's figure emerged from the driver's seat, walking with a casual confidence that made my stomach turn. She looked satisfied, happy even. "I need to see more dates," I said. Miguel nodded, pulling up footage from October 5th. Same pattern. Derek arrives, Courtney leaves in the company truck, returns hours later. Then October 12th, October 18th. Every single overtime shift followed the identical sequence. "Jesus," Sarah muttered, looking over our shoulders. "How long has this been going on?" "The GPS data goes back to March," Miguel said, "but the pattern really intensified in August." August. right around the time Courtney started volunteering for every available overtime shift. When she began bringing home those extra paychecks that helped us afford Emma's dance classes and the new dishwasher. My hands clenched into fists. She'd been using company resources, our company's trucks, our fuel, our insurance liability, to facilitate her affair. Every mile was documented, every gallon of gas accounted for in the fleet management system. "There's more," Miguel said hesitantly. "I ran a query on Derek's access card. He's been badging into the facility during these same time frames. Administrative override codes." The screen showed Derek's badge activity. He'd been entering the warehouse during off hours, using his regional manager credentials to bypass normal security protocols. While I worked my regular night shift, thinking Courtney was earning overtime at Pacific Logistics, she was actually here, in my own workplace, with my boss. "They've been meeting in the warehouse," I said, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. "In our facility, while I'm working." Sarah's face had gone pale. "John, I had no idea. If I'd known what was really happening." "It's not your fault," I said, though my voice sounded hollow even to me. "They played everyone." Miguel was still digging through the data. "The audit trail shows Derek's been approving Courtney's overtime requests personally, bypassing normal supervisory channels. And look at this. He's been authorizing fuel cards for those truck trips." The scope of their deception was staggering. They hadn't just been having an affair. They'd been systematically exploiting company resources to enable it. Using corporate vehicles, fuel cards, after-hours facility access, all documented in excruciating digital detail. My phone buzzed. A text from Courtney. "Working late again tonight, honey. Don't wait up. Love you." The casual lie, delivered while I sat surrounded by evidence of her betrayal, ignited something cold and furious in my chest. I screenshot the message and saved it to my growing evidence file. "She's probably planning another motel run right now," I said, showing Miguel the text. "What are you going to do?" Sarah asked. Before I could answer, Miguel's tablet chimed with an alert. He frowned, checking the notification. "John, we might have a problem. The warehouse management system logs every query, every data access. If Derek or Courtney have administrative privileges, they can see my search history," I finished. Miguel nodded grimly. "Your data mining activities are clearly visible in the audit logs. Anyone with the right clearance level could see exactly what you've been investigating." The hunter becoming the hunted. My advantage could disappear if they realized what I'd uncovered. "How much time do we have?" I asked. "Hard to say. Derek might not check the audit logs regularly, but if something tips him off..." I looked at the mountain of evidence we'd compiled. GPS tracking, security footage, badge logs, phantom inventory movements. It was overwhelming and undeniable, but only if I could present it before they realized I knew. "We need to move fast," Miguel warned. "If they figure out what you're doing..." I stared at the screen, watching the GPS dots trace their pattern of deception. 47 trips to that motel, hundreds of hours of company time stolen, thousands of dollars in fuel and vehicle costs. But as Miguel pulled up the final data set, the correlation between phantom shipments and Courtney's overtime schedule, something even more disturbing emerged. "Look at this inventory analysis," Miguel said, his voice tight with concern. "The phantom shipment pattern, it's not random." The data showed items worth thousands of dollars being processed through the system, digitally staged for shipping, but never actually leaving the warehouse. High-value electronics, computer components, industrial equipment, all during Courtney's supposed overtime shifts. "This isn't just an affair," I said, the words coming out like gravel. "It's theft." Miguel's eyes widened as the implications sank in. "Systematic embezzlement, using the automated systems to create false shipping records while the actual merchandise never leaves the building," I finished. "They're stealing from us, from me." The phantom shipment pattern revealed that Courtney's overtime shifts perfectly correlated with inventory movements that never actually left the warehouse. The printouts scattered across my workstation told a story I didn't want to believe. Miguel and Sarah had gone back to their stations, leaving me alone with the evidence. I pulled up Derek Patterson's employee file on my monitor. Regional Operations Manager, hired March 2018. 8 months before Courtney's first overtime request. "Let me cross-reference this," I muttered, fingers moving across the keyboard. Derek's badge access logs loaded on screen. Every phantom shipment timestamp matched perfectly with his entries to Sector 7B. Every single one. The data was surgical in its precision. September 15th. Derek's badge scan at 11:47 p.m. Phantom shipment processed at 11:52 p.m. September 22nd. Badge scan at 10:33 p.m. Shipment at 10:41 p.m. 47 perfect correlations. I leaned back in my chair, the fluorescent lights humming overhead. The warehouse operated with its usual robotic efficiency around me. Conveyors moving, scanners beeping, automated voices announcing completed cycles. But I felt like I was drowning in the silence between the sounds. Derek's BMW appeared on every loading dock camera timestamp when Courtney claimed emergency overtime. I pulled up the footage from October 3rd. There it was, sleek black sedan rolling past the security gate at 10:15 p.m., just as Courtney texted me about urgent inventory corrections. "Regional Operations Manager," I said to the empty control room. The title felt heavy in my mouth. This wasn't just my wife's affair partner. This was my superior, the man who signed my performance reviews. I scrolled through Derek's personnel record. MBA from State University, 6-figure salary, company car allowance, everything Courtney thought she deserved, everything I could never give her. The telematics data painted the ugliest picture yet. Company vehicle 4A-7729, the truck Courtney used for her fake overtime, had GPS coordinates logged at Riverside Motel for 47 separate occasions. Derek's BMW showed the same location, same time frames, 2 to 4 hours each visit. My coffee had gone cold hours ago, but I took another sip anyway. The bitter taste matched my mood as I documented each timestamp. Vehicle arrival 9:47 p.m., departure 1:23 a.m. Arrival 10:12 p.m., departure 2:15 a.m. A pattern of deception stretching back 2 years. 2 years, I whispered to the screen. While I worked nights to keep our family stable, they were building their own little world 20 miles away, using company resources, using my shifts as cover. I pulled up the work order system. Derek's authorization signature appeared on every phantom shipment night. Emergency inventory audits requiring specialized logistics expertise. That's how he justified bringing Courtney in during off hours. Official paperwork for unofficial business. The warehouse management system showed Derek's override codes approving overtime that never happened. Courtney's time card showed 8.5 hours on September 15th. The heat sensors showed 0 human presence in her assigned areas for the entire shift. "He's been covering for her," I said, my voice barely audible over the mechanical rhythm of the conveyor belts. Every fraudulent hour, every stolen moment, had Derek's digital fingerprints all over it. I clicked through the heat sensor archives. The thermal imaging didn't lie. 2 distinct body signatures in storage area 7B during hours when only Courtney should have been present. The infrared patterns showed them moving together, staying close. The automated systems recorded everything with digital precision. "They thought the warehouse was empty," I muttered, studying the ghostly heat signatures on my monitor. But the building never slept. Sensors tracked every movement, every breath, every stolen kiss in the darkness between the storage racks. My phone buzzed. Text from Courtney. "Working late again tonight. Emergency shipment audit with regional management. Don't wait up. Love you. I checked the live GPS tracking. Her dot pulsed at Riverside Motel. Derek's BMW had arrived 20 minutes earlier. I could see it on the real-time fleet management system. Emergency audit, I said bitterly, my voice echoing in the control room. I screenshot the GPS coordinates, the timestamp, the distance from any legitimate work location. Real-time deception, documented in high definition. The warehouse automation continued its relentless cycle around me. Robotic arms lifted pallets, scanners read barcodes, conveyors moved products toward shipping docks. Everything functioned exactly as programmed, while my marriage fell apart in data points and GPS coordinates. I accessed the cloud backup from Courtney's work phone. The message logs loaded slowly. 1,847 text exchanges between her and Derek over the past 18 months. I started scrolling through them, my jaw clenching tighter with each intimate detail disguised as logistics coordination. Sector 7B needs special attention tonight. Derek, September 10th. My expertise is available for private consultation. Courtney's response. Quality control inspection requires hands-on approach. Derek again. The warehouse's automated announcements continued their scheduled updates. Zone 12 picking complete, initiating sort sequence. But all I could hear was my wife's betrayal, spelled out in corporate doublespeak. Derek's messages got bolder as time went on. Your logistics skills are unmatched. We should discuss your advancement opportunities in person. Courtney's replies showed she was more than willing to discuss those opportunities. My hands trembled slightly as I saved the message logs to my secure drive. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across my workstation, making the evidence look even more damning. Every text, every timestamp, every GPS coordinate built an unshakable case. The weight of it all settled on my shoulders like a lead blanket. Not just the affair, the systematic abuse of company resources, the fraud, the lies stacked on lies. They turned my workplace into their playground, used my shifts as their cover story. I looked around the control room, my domain for the past 6 years. Every system, every process, every efficiency improvement bore my fingerprints. This place ran like clockwork because I made it run like clockwork. And they'd violated it all. I stared at the message logs until my eyes burned. Then I noticed something else in the data patterns. The phantom shipments weren't random. They followed a specific sequence, always high-value electronics, always processed during Courtney's fake overtime shifts. I pulled up the inventory management system and cross-referenced the phantom orders with actual stock levels. My stomach dropped. The missing items weren't just processed and abandoned. They were being systematically removed from our physical inventory, while the digital records showed them as shipped. This isn't just an affair, I whispered to the empty control room. The automated picking robots continued their precise dance around me, oblivious to the theft happening under their sensors. I dug deeper into Derek's authorization codes. Every phantom shipment bore his digital signature, his regional operations manager privileges overriding standard safety protocols. The pattern was elegant in its simplicity. Create fake orders, process them through automated systems, generate legitimate-looking invoices, then physically remove the products during off hours. The warehouse's climate control system hummed steadily as I calculated the scope of their operation. $127,000 worth of electronics over 18 months. High-end tablets, smartphones, gaming consoles, items that could be easily resold through online marketplaces or shell companies. My phone buzzed. Derek Patterson's name appeared on the screen. John, I need to discuss some inventory discrepancies with you tomorrow morning. Derek's voice carried that artificial authority he used when trying to sound important. Can you stay after your shift? I'd like to go over some numbers with you. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I kept my voice steady. Of course, Derek. Happy to help with whatever you need. Great. See you at 7 a.m. in my office. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, understanding that everything had changed. They knew I was investigating. Derek's call wasn't a coincidence. It was a warning shot. I immediately pulled up the security footage from yesterday, scrolling back to my lunch break. There it was. Derek entering the control room at 1:47 a.m., walking directly to my workstation. The timestamp showed he spent 12 minutes at my computer, his fingers moving across the keyboard with purpose. "Son of a bitch," I muttered, watching Derek review my recent database queries on the security monitor. He knew exactly what I'd found, exactly how deep I dug into their operation. I tested my system access levels. My blood ran cold as I discovered my warehouse permissions had been quietly restricted. Financial reports that I'd accessed just hours ago now showed access denied. Vehicle telematics data was blocked. Even basic inventory queries returned error messages. Derek's administrative privileges had allowed him to limit my clearance without triggering any alerts. They were systematically shutting down my investigation, cutting off my access to the very systems I needed to build my case. The automated announcements echoed through the facility. Zone 15 picking sequence initiated. But all I could think about was how methodically they were covering their tracks. My email notification chimed. A message from Human Resources. "Mr. Sanchez, please report to HR tomorrow at 2 p.m. regarding unauthorized access to confidential systems. This meeting is mandatory." Derek's signature appeared at the bottom as the filing manager. My phone buzzed with a text from Courtney. "Emergency overtime again tonight, babe. Regional audit requires my expertise. Don't wait up." I checked the timestamp. She'd sent it 3 minutes after Derek's call. They were coordinating their moves, planning their next theft while simultaneously building a case against me. The betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. I leaned back in my chair, processing the full scope of what I was facing. They weren't just stealing from the company. They were using Courtney's logistics expertise to perfect their embezzlement scheme. Her knowledge of warehouse operations, combined with Derek's administrative access, created the perfect criminal partnership. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry insects as I realized the truth. This wasn't a simple affair that had spiraled into theft. This was a calculated business partnership disguised as romance, with my marriage as collateral damage and my career as their next target. I sat in my Toyota at 6:47 a.m., engine off, watching Courtney's Honda through the windshield. The laptop bag felt heavy on my passenger seat. 18 months of evidence compressed into spreadsheets and GPS logs. My phone showed 17 missed calls from Derek Patterson since 4 a.m. Corporate must have found the phantom shipment reports I'd submitted at 3:30 a.m. The morning air smelled like wet asphalt and coffee from the McDonald's across the street. I knew Derek was probably in his BMW right now, driving to the office to find security waiting. The automated systems don't lie. Every badge scan, every vehicle movement, every phantom order, all time-stamped and cross-referenced. You can't delete physics. The front door opened and Courtney appeared in her Pacific Logistics uniform, coffee mug in hand. She froze when she saw my car. I got out slowly, laptop bag slung over my shoulder. The gravel crunched under my steel-toed boots. "You're home early," she said, voice carefully neutral. "Day shift starts in 2 hours. Thought we should talk first." Her grip tightened on the mug handle. The neighborhood was quiet except for a garbage truck 3 blocks away, hydraulics whining as it lifted bins. Neither of us moved toward the house. She knew. Something in her posture, shoulders too straight, chin too high. The same defensive stance she'd used when I'd asked about the overtime schedule discrepancies. "John, whatever you think, inside." I walked past her through the front door. The hallway smelled like Emma's strawberry shampoo from her bath last night. Her backpack sat by the stairs, ready for school. Normal life, continuing despite everything crumbling underneath. In the kitchen, I set the laptop on the breakfast table where Emma usually ate her cereal. Courtney stood by the coffee maker, still in uniform. The company logo on her polo shirt, Pacific Logistics Solutions, seemed to mock me now. 18 months of lies sewn right into the fabric. Derek called 17 times, I said, opening the laptop screen. The telematics dashboard loaded, red dots marking every trip to Riverside Motel, coordinates precise to within 3 meters. Corporate received my report 3 hours ago. Courtney's face went white. The coffee maker beeped, finished brewing. Steam rose from the carafe like morning fog, carrying the bitter scent of dark roast. Her hands trembled as she set down her mug. "John, I can explain." "Can you?" I rotated the laptop toward her. GPS coordinates, timestamps, RFID badge logs filled the screen in neat columns. Vehicle 4A-7729, 47 trips. Your badge was in Sector 7B while you claimed overtime at Pacific. She sat down heavily, still holding her mug. The chair scraped against the linoleum. Outside, a school bus rumbled past, kids heading to Emma's school. Normal Tuesday morning sounds while our marriage disintegrated in spreadsheet cells. The phantom shipments too? I scrolled through heat sensor logs, showing 2 people in storage areas during off hours. Derek taught you the system loopholes. She nodded slowly, tears starting. We never meant for it to go this far. The morning light through our kitchen window illuminated dust motes floating between us like tiny accusations. 20 years of marriage, and it came down to data points and thermal signatures. I'd built my whole career on system integrity. Turns out my personal life needed the same audit protocols. How much? I asked. What? The phantom shipments. How much did you steal? She flinched at the word steal. It wasn't stealing. The orders were processed, the inventory moved, but never shipped. $127,000 in electronics, Courtney. High-value items digitally processed for shipping, but diverted to off-book storage. I pulled up the financial analysis. Derek's override codes, your logistics expertise, systematic embezzlement disguised as operational efficiency. Her coffee went cold as she stared at 18 months of data. The kitchen clock ticked loudly, the same clock we'd bought when Emma was born. Time moving forward while everything else collapsed backward into lies and theft and motel rooms. The affair I could maybe understand, I said, closing the financial reports. But this? You turned me into an accessory. Every night I worked, maintaining systems you were using to steal from my own company. You don't understand the pressure. I understand numbers. RFID scans don't lie. GPS coordinates don't have feelings. Heat sensors don't make excuses. I leaned back in my chair. Derek's probably in custody by now. Corporate security moves fast on embezzlement. She set down her mug with shaking hands. How long have you known? Since September 15th. The 0.02% variance. I scrolled through heat sensor logs, showing 2 thermal signatures in restricted areas. Took me 3 weeks to map the full pattern, another month to build the case. The refrigerator hummed. A neighbor's dog barked once. The normalcy felt surreal. Kitchen sounds and morning routine while discussing felony theft and adultery. Emma would wake up in an hour, expecting breakfast and homework help and normal parents. I closed the laptop with a soft click. The screen went dark, taking the evidence with it. But corporate had copies now. The investigation would continue without me. I'm transferring to day shift, I said. You keep the house, I'll find an apartment. Courtney looked up, confused. That's it? No screaming? No lawyers? You lose my health insurance, my 401k contributions. The overtime pay stops when Derek gets fired. My voice stayed level, mechanical. 20 years of marriage reduced to logistics and benefit calculations. Emma stays with me weekends and school nights. You get visitation. John, please. The data doesn't lie, Courtney. It never has. Courtney wiped her eyes with a paper towel from the counter. The rough texture caught on her mascara, leaving dark smudges. What about Emma? Joint custody.
I'll pick her up from school Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays.
I stood, shouldering my laptop bag. The weight felt familiar. 20 years of carrying work home, now carrying evidence of betrayal away. My mother knows about the babysitting arrangement ending. Courtney nodded, unable to speak. Her throat made a small clicking sound when she swallowed. The kitchen suddenly felt enormous, like a warehouse with too much empty space between the shelves. Our breakfast table sat in the middle like an island of normalcy in an ocean of wreckage. The custody papers will be filed Monday, I said, checking my phone. 8:47 a.m. Derek was probably in handcuffs by now. Sarah Chen's helping me transfer to day shift. Clean break from the night operations. John. She reached toward me, then stopped. Her hand hung in the air for a moment before falling to her side. At the front door, I paused with my hand on the brass knob we'd installed together 3 years ago. Emma had helped hold the screws. Derek's probably in custody by now. Embezzlement charges carry 5 to 10 years. Courtney followed me, still in her Pacific Logistics uniform. The irony wasn't lost. She'd worn that shirt while stealing from my warehouse. John, I'm sorry. I turned the doorknob. The mechanism clicked with mechanical precision. I know. The morning air hit us both, cool and sharp with October bite. My Toyota sat in the driveway like a faithful machine, never questioning where I drove it or why. Across the street, Mrs. Patterson watered her roses, pretending not to watch our quiet destruction unfold. The suburban morning continued around us. Garbage trucks humming, dogs barking, sprinklers cycling on automatic timers. What do I tell Emma? Courtney's voice cracked. Tell her Daddy found a new job with better hours. I opened the car door. The interior smelled like coffee and work boots. She'll understand when she's older. I drove to Linda's house where Emma was eating breakfast at the small kitchen table. My mother looked up from scrambling eggs, her weathered hands steady on the spatula. Steam rose from the pan in precise spirals. How did it go? Clean separation, no drama. I hung my jacket on the chair back. The kitchen smelled like butter and cinnamon. Normal morning smells that felt foreign after the sterile warehouse air. Emma ran to hug me, syrup sticky on her fingers. Daddy, are you staying for pancakes? I lifted her up, inhaling her strawberry shampoo smell. 8 years old and still small enough to carry. Still trusting that Daddy had answers for everything. Not today, sweetheart. Daddy has to find a new place to live. Like when Uncle Miguel moved. She twisted a strand of my hair around her finger. Something like that. Linda nodded approvingly from the stove. Some problems have simple solutions. Separate the variables, isolate the corrupted data, rebuild the system. I can keep her after school until you get settled. Thanks, Mom. I set Emma down and she returned to her pancakes, already distracted by the cartoon playing on Linda's tablet. Children adapt faster than adults. Their systems haven't calcified yet. By noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Miguel. Derek arrested at 9 a.m. Courtney suspended pending investigation. You okay? I sat in a Starbucks parking lot, apartment listings spread across my passenger seat. The paper felt crisp between my fingers. Clean data, clear options, measurable square footage and monthly costs. I typed back. Moving to day shift Monday. Coffee later? The response came immediately. Always. Outside, normal people lived normal lives, unaware that 2 careers had just ended with a few lines of code. A woman pushed a stroller past my window, talking on her phone about dinner plans. Her world was intact, systems functioning properly. I scrolled through the listings. Studio apartment, $1,200. One bedroom, $1,450. The numbers added up to a new life measured in smaller spaces and split custody weekends. That evening, I packed my clothes into cardboard boxes while Emma colored at her desk. The sound of crayons on paper filled the silence, steady, methodical strokes like data entry. "Why are you taking your shirts, Daddy?" "Daddy's going to live somewhere else for a while." I folded my work polos with precise creases. Navy blue, company logo, 20 years of faithful service.
She looked up, red crayon in hand. "Like a sleepover?"
"Something like that." Courtney watched from the doorway, still in her uniform. The house felt like a warehouse after inventory. Everything counted, cataloged, ready for redistribution. Our wedding photo sat on the dresser, faces smiling from a time when the data was clean. "Emma's room stays exactly the same," I said, taping a box shut. "Her schedule doesn't change." "What about Christmas?" "We'll figure it out." I lifted the box, testing its weight. The important thing is stability for her. 3 days later, I started day shift at Megaflow. The morning sun streamed through the warehouse skylights differently than the fluorescent night lighting. Natural illumination revealed details I'd never noticed. Dust motes dancing in the air, the actual color of the concrete floor, the way shadows moved with the sun's path.
Sarah Chen, the day supervisor, showed me my new workstation.
"Heard you caught some irregularities in the system." I adjusted my monitor angle, calibrating the screen brightness for daylight conditions. "Just doing my job." "Derek's replacement starts next week. Corporate's implementing new audit protocols." She handed me a fresh security badge. "Your investigation's being used as a case study." The automated picking robots moved in their precise patterns, mechanical arms selecting inventory with millimeter accuracy. Everything ran smoothly when the data was clean. No phantom orders, no phantom relationships, no phantom overtime. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Daddy, I drew you a picture of your new apartment." I smiled for the first time in weeks. Some systems rebuild themselves stronger after the corrupted data is purged. The warehouse hummed around me, efficient and honest, each component performing its designated function. The numbers finally added up.